Thank you, Ihan.
So
Luckily, that's not my first and only dream. This one that I really created, that was the one with my neighbors. Um, but yeah, thank you so much for inviting me back into Mother Earth Toastmasters. Um, so for me, I like to walk around the neighborhood, but there's always something that would catch my eye, and I would like just stand there and just admire it, and I'll be like, wow, and I'll start dreaming. And then people might be looking at me like wondering, what's this girl looking at? Don't know, you know, because it's just this big field that is grass that has nothing else. And maybe just nearby, maybe there's some tree, there's the footpath, there's the HDB, there's the market. But I'm just like staring at the green. And for me, is I'm looking at it with huge admiration because I'm imagining people, doing stuff, people who are dancing, people who are having yoga classes, people who are caring for the space, people who are taking care of gardens, people who are composting, people who just love to be there, taking care of that big grass area that is nobody there right now. So, and then I look at this grass and it's like, maybe it's like that for 20 years, not being used at all. And just to walk to the train station, I have to walk all around it, which is all 15 minutes. But it's underutilized. What's this space sitting there for? And for me, sometimes I struggle with it because I'm like, oh, yes, Singapore is such a built up place. You don't need to have all the spaces like forests or HDB or market, because you also need space. And so large green spaces are great. But at the same time, I just felt that it reflects how Singapore is, that it is very well managed. It's managed to the extent that you just admire that you are there, you just enjoy it, but you cannot really touch it, you cannot really interact with it, you cannot really say, hey, let's do something here. So I felt that whenever I dream about working with the neighborhood, working with the communities, working with the schools and businesses, I always think like, how can I, transform my neighborhood? But where do you start? Where do you begin? It is very difficult, and how do you like reach out to everyone? So I think for me, this dream came back, or it started to take root during the pandemic and maybe after, like, or rather the circuit breaker. Because I guess during this pandemic, it is like all these issues that have been there in Singapore for ages, it just came out. It was like vomit. I don't know what else to say. But it's like it's out there in the open. Suddenly everyone is aware there is food access issues. There are people living in rental flats or even in the bigger houses, and they actually need food aid. The very fact that we couldn't even walk out to access parks and nature spaces, people are feeling so claustrophobic, no place to go. And also the fact that when people stop having access to, just even meeting people out there, there's this sense of loneliness and being all alone, and mental health issues really start kicking up. I think during this whole period, everyone experienced the same problem, and there is greater empathy for issues that have always been there. But now people are starting to understand. And people are starting to understand that, hey, you know what? I can also be living my life differently. Because suddenly now I don't have to go to work in some other town. Suddenly I'm here. Like there's this whole issues that is suddenly like flash out, and we just have to work with it. And we realize that actually we can be different. We just have to be in that situation where we decide we will live and work differently. And so I think during this period, there was a lot of local, the government did do some stuff where they gave out a lot of edible seeds. They said that yes, Singapore is going to be a city in nature, we're going to grow a lot of food. There's a lot of activities going on. People are starting to want to, grow their own food, and they're trying it whether in their homes or anywhere that they can get access to. They also realize that, hey, maybe people are out there and they are, they need food aid, or they need mental health aid, and we can actually do more. So people are stepping outside their comfort zones to do more. But what really triggered me was that I realized that, hey, people are learning to grow food, yes, but they are signing up to learn to grow food from, say, for example, a wastewater company that has nothing about growing food on their website except that one page that says that if you learn how to grow food with us, pay $1,000, we teach you how to do it. But their whole company experience is not there. And when they put out the workshop, they put that under wellness, and I'm like, but this is like, I understand, like you need to market it, but it is totally very misleading. And I felt that there's something that my community, the community that I hang out with, there is a lot that we can share, and how can we be part of that narrative. And I also feel that Singapore government, they has been supporting like high-tech solution as a solution to ourselves. But is that necessarily the way that we want to so-called build back better? Is building back better, building back what we have always been doing, or can we actually say that, look, this was a button that says pause. Rethink how you have been living your life, how you work, and be different. Do something different that is actually better. But what does better mean? So one of the things that I've been learning with my community is how, even when we use the word sustainability, it's not that great, because you're just going round and round. You're just maybe like making the grassland back to a grassland. It doesn't actually improve. But what I've been learning is that, we can actually regenerate. We can actually regenerate ecosystems. We can regenerate nature, the soil. We can also take care of ourselves better. And I've been learning that a lot. And we can also be learning from nature in terms of, how everything, can do well together. Everyone in the ecosystem has a role to play, but we just need to take care of the environment. And how can we take care of that environment that we live, that we work, that that nature is, in a better state? And so I started to think, how can we tell a new story? And the collective, the community that I'm part of, we have had two very exciting opportunities to transform land that is underutilized and do that with the local community. And it is spaces where we can just pilot ideas that we would really love to see in Singapore. And it's free reign. You can do whatever you want, almost. So because of that, it gave me that wish, that dream. That's like, maybe this piece of land is not that big as that big grassland I was seeing just outside my house, but maybe this could be the spark, that 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 beginning of that regenerative like neighborhood that I've been dreaming about. So the idea that I've been trying to craft in the last few weeks, the first is that, yes, I want to work at the neighborhood level, but first you need a spark. And that spark is actually an outdoor space, one that is very accessible, that's very visible from people's homes. Ones where everybody who walk by, they understand what this space is about. And they understand that this is cared for by the local community, that there is care for everyone, there's care for the nature, there's care for for the plants, for food, for animals, for one another, no matter which part of the population you are from. There is minimal waste. Whatever is maybe generated from the neighborhood that can go back into the soil, it goes back. But there's this cycle. You do not treat like if you try to give food scraps from a business to the garden, you do not dump it there. You give it in a way that actually nourishes the soil, and the garden gives you back. And we are trying to create a new sense of community, one that is collective leadership, one that is providing you with a safe space, one that provides you with a space to experiment and to learn, and want to just listen to one another. And extending out that idea, that nature of the culture into the neighborhood, creating strategic collaborations with stakeholders, maybe schools, maybe children, kids club, maybe community kitchens, so that there is a network that actually works together at the neighborhood level, that understands there is a larger picture, a larger
Oops, looks like her network is a bit weak. Okay, let's ponder about what Cuifen has just shared while we wait for her to come online. We'll have time for maybe one question after this. So if she comes back, yeah. Oops.
Hello, sorry, my mobile data ran out. I'll just continue. I'm close to ending. Um, I feel that I would like also this intentional programming to include well-being, because I feel that there is now this greater awareness of mental health, emotional health, as well as physical health. How can we create opportunities so that everyone in the neighborhood has equal access? And it could also be, programs where you just be free, dance with joy, or, create your art pieces or take photos. And or basically just sit down with one another and just have conversations, because too few people in Singapore actually have the time and space to actually sit down and just connect as humans. And I'm hoping to find community kitchens where people can just come together, share food, and enjoy each other's companies, so that those who do not actually maybe have access to the garden or find it a bit challenging to go there, they can still join such activities. And so I was mentioning there's two different locations that my community can do this at. One is at a public park in Boon Lay, and another one is in a school field beside an international school. And I feel that whatever we want to do, it's very fresh. There's no idea of a regenerative neighborhood in Singapore. So it's like, whatever we want to do, we do it, we try it out, and we tell the story. And so part of this project that I want to do, I want to be able to document the process from day zero, and create maybe a film or exhibition that is out there in the neighborhood, so that the story goes back to the people of the neighborhood. And perhaps if there are storybooks that come out of what we do, what we learn as community, that is also being told in storybooks. So I guess to conclude, I want to say that I feel that every one of us, we are as prepared as we are to be able to change the world for the better. And often what we realize is that it's not about asking others to change the world. It's actually, we need to first change ourselves. We need to lead ourselves at a very personal level, and also tell ourselves that, you know what, where we stay at the neighborhoods, we can also make a difference. So I'm starting with that. I'm looking for partners right now to see how to make this possible. And so I think the only interactive thing I had in my mind was, I wanted to ask that question, would you join me in making regenerative neighborhood a thing in Singapore? I can't really see you, but if you can raise your hand, that'd be very awesome. And so this is a dream that I'm working on, and I hope it is real in a year's time, in 2 years' time, and I hope to be able to let you know when that is real. And so thank you.
Thank you, Cuifen. Thank you for your passion, sharing with such passion as you always do.
You can see my ideas not as fleshed out as it could be, but thank you for listening.
Ihan, if I may just share feedback on what I'm hearing. I was really very moved by her statement. She said, is building back better? Does it always have to be more advanced, or can it be something from the past? So I'm from a technology background, right? So when people say make things better, it's always around something more sophisticated, something better than what we have. But when she talked about this going back to the past, something that we have given up as we pursued our development, I thought that was quite, it left an impact on me. And one thing I wanted to suggest to Cuifen is that I know you're trying to create this space. I challenge you to not think of it as only one location and one space. All right. What I feel is that there is already a movement that has been happening for at least 5 to 10 years, where many neighborhoods have started their own community gardens. In the HDB blocks, a small little strip becomes a garden for that block, and they're all disparate, and they are left to their own views and their own ideas. Some are run by housewives, some are run by grandmothers, and they're not organized, they're not collected in the same philosophy. So I challenge you that maybe you don't have to be one location, but rather you can reach out to all of these existing groups and then trying to imbue that more holistic approach to regenerative gardens, and then teaching them, guiding them, and then creating the community that is not one place, it is across all of Singapore. Yeah, so that's my my remarks. But thank you so much for sharing your ideas. It's very inspiring.
Actually, we did have the opportunity. I think we are just not ready. 2 locations is more than enough.
Yeah, but you don't have to be the one running it, no? Because they already have people, very passionate people who are creating their little space. But I feel that they are completely not coordinated. Some of them are, some of them look very nice. Some of them look really makeshift. So they could benefit from guidance from a central group, providing the seeds, providing the techniques, providing the community and support. Yeah.
To brood on Ash's idea, I think this is a brilliant idea. Thank you very much, Cuifen, for sharing. Thank you very much, Ash, for coming forward with this view and suggestion. I agree with both of you, and maybe Cuifen, part of your project, starting a new community, regenerative style, you can interview these people. So it can be like the prelude, like preparing for it and learning from whatever is there, because there are also small initiatives. And then you are a storyteller. You can write their story much better. So if you have like a template of an interview, and then you can make a booklet of whatever it's already there, and people like us will be very happy to understand how this works. And then when you will learn these different stories, you will see the best practices. And at the end, if you make the story, they can read. They are featured in this booklet, electronic booklet of yours, and then they can improve learning from one another. And when you start your community, you already have exposure to these people you interview. You have a booklet, you have a story already, you have a dream. And yeah, you can also centralize it, like Ash said. And I hear and I see this is the bag better. You take this traditional thing and integrate the technology to make these stories known and to learn from each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Lily. Thank you, Cuifen. So if anyone is interested to join Cuifen in her mission to create a different kind of neighborhood, do reach out to her. And hi, Smita, welcome. All right, so now we are going on to the 2 remaining prepared speeches. But before that, let me share with you your homework. So in this, one of the ways that the Mother Earth Toastmasters Club is building back better is we're trying to innovate to come up with better ways to help everyone improve and be more effective advocates for our cause. And one of this is to empower everyone to give evaluations. So it's not just a few experts that have the wisdom or the right to give feedback. We want to show that everyone has something meaningful to say. even if you have never done a Toastmaster speech in your life, but just being an audience, sharing your opinion, it can give valuable insights to the speaker. So one thing we would like all of you to do is to take note of one OIK. So what is OIK? First is the O is the observation or situation. What did you observe the speaker saying or doing that really like made an impression on you? And then I would be the impact. How did you feel? So it could be either positive or negative feelings. And then finally a request. So what would you like the speaker to do in the future? Do you want him or her to build up on a certain thing you like, or to do less, or to do something in a different way? So after each speak, after both Xavier and I have spoken, we'll be breaking out into 2 rooms where we have 5 minutes. And this is how I would suggest we do it, but the speakers can manage their room as you wish. Yeah. So the first thing is to ask one person to give a summary of what they got, the key message that they got from the speech, and then everyone to give the why did I say OIK? OIR. And then finally the speaker, if there's any clarification, the speaker can come in. So then after that, we have the speakers coming back to share what they learned, and you can share more feedback in the chat. So these are the 2 rooms. So Ash, Cuifen, Smita, Pui Cuifen, and Raju will help Xavier, while the rest will help Aish. Okay. All right. Any questions about this peer evaluation? If not, let me introduce our first speaker for the among the 2 Toastmaster speakers. So Ash will be speaking, doing her project 3, which is researching and presenting. So she has done a lot of hard work to do research and incorporate that into her speech, which is titled "When You Cannot See the Forest for the Trees." And Ash is going to speak for 5 to 7 minutes. Yeah. So do take note of the timer. Okay, do you need to show your slides?
I am sharing my slides. Can people see it?
Okay. Can you make it like the full screen?
I think this is it.
Okay, no worries.
Sorry about that.
All right. If not, can we all welcome Aish? The stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Ihan, for that. Good evening, everybody. So when the theme was presented to be Building Back Better, I had to do my research. And there was a lot of ways that you can rebuild and lots of things that you can rebuild. For example, we know that there is a divisive society that we're seeing on the news. We've got to rebuild careers that weren't resilient enough to last the pandemic. We're rebuilding trust, as you can see in the US elections, or organization level strategies and pivoting that is needed post-pandemic. So there was a lot of different ways of rebuilding, and I kept being drawn towards the economy, and I kept getting distracted with a lot of specific details on one particular aspect, one particular critique, And the short-term specifics that need immediate attention takes time and focus away from the big picture. So what I was reflecting with all of that is there is a term in English called can't see the forest for the trees, which means failing to grasp the main issue because we are overly attentive to the details. So I decided to make this Toastmaster speech about the rebuilding projects that are going to impact the world, namely the Green New Deals that various developing countries are approaching, and the critiques that they have dealt with because of a perceived lack of focus, or that they are spread too thin. And I'm also going to look at case studies in the past where we've had various different ways of green stimulus being applied for the global financial crisis and so on. So I'm going to talk about the lessons learned from there as well. Right, so the pandemic has given us like this unique opportunity for sustainability initiatives. So many sources of innovation in the past have followed a crisis, a sustained period of trauma that led to innovation. For example, the global oil crisis in 1973 led to a lot of countries experiencing the effects of skyrocketing oil prices. As a result, many countries started in placing rations on oil. There was a lot of investigation into renewable technology. Japan, for instance, invested a lot in innovation in fuel-efficient cars, and Japanese fuel-efficient cars have dominated the market as a result of that. So this is what we want to see out of the pandemic as well. So each package, each country has released a lot of green stimulus packages as a result of COVID-19. So in this graph that you see that was supplied by the World Research Institute, you can see the COVID-19 green stimulus versus the stimulus that was put in place as a result of the global financial crisis. But the countries that you see that are investing are very different. For example, EU is leading in terms of the amount of green stimulus that they have, whereas all the other countries are noticeably smaller in terms of the investment that they are having. So this is just a collection of the top like 10 developed nations. So we can look at what it looks like for a country like Singapore. So if you look at Singapore, we have 5 different categories in which Singapore has determined that they will be investing the stimulus. And this was presented by Grace Fu, Minister of Sustainability and Environment. And this is available in a site that is linked in the source. I think it is the platform 2020redesign.org, which collects this information from all the nations. So we see things here, as a previous speaker mentioned, things like what do we do about encouraging gardening, for example? Can we get people to be more, to improve food security within the country? The climate mitigation measures that you see involves investing close to $5 billion in the Tuas Nexus, which will save a lot of carbon emissions. There's Green Building Master Plan. There's also investments in renewable energy. All of this is going to produce a lot of jobs, which will help the economy directly and indirectly, while also serving a climate mitigation measure. There are other cross-cutting measures that are discussed. There was international cooperation that has also been included, because it is not enough that we just bring up the Singapore economy. We do need to reach out and help all the other developing nations as well. So now you may ask, why is this so diluted? Why can't we focus on one thing and perfectly? So many critics say that this green intersectionality is actually damaging to the fight against climate change. So they argue that these other policy goals are irrelevant and costly and will weaken the support for the plan. But author and activist Naomi Klein, in her interview with The Guardian, argues that these issues are not silos. the crisis of inequality and environmental devastation are linked and can only be overcome with a holistic vision for social and economic transformation. So these are the lessons learned through green stimulus in the past. We've got to be more transparent. We have to invest in climate-friendly measures. It means we have to do all of the above and not one or two. But it's useful to not get lost in everything that is wrong with the approach. I call on you to not lose sight of the bigger picture. And I'd like to close with this quote from Kamala Harris's mother, which says, "Be driven with a vision of what can be, unburdened by what has been." Meaning, try to see the forest and don't get lost in the individual trees. Thank you so much for the time and the opportunity.
Thank you, Aish.
Stop sharing.
Yes, thank you for the very interesting research that you have shared. Certainly a lot of things that maybe we won't have time to dig through. So thank you for helping us break down all these issues. All right, with that, let me introduce our next speaker, Xavier. Let's see, Xavier is doing his level 3 project 3, which is to inspire your audience, with his speech title, "Not Going Back." Now, Xavier, as we all know, has a great app to add his beard. But besides that, he enjoys great conversations with smart people. And he believes that looking at situations with the positive in mind is the key to overcoming any challenge. So he believes taking care of Mother Earth is about what we can do every day to have a positive impact. Looking forward to some inspiration from you, Xavier.
Okay, thank you, Ihan. So, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Can you imagine this? It's a world where the pollution is minimal and it's been dropping. A world where people are encouraged to work from home and only go to their place of business when it's necessary. A world without traffic jams, with few planes and fewer airports, with few tourists and even fewer crowds. Wouldn't that be a breath of fresh air for a beautiful planet, for nature, for the wildlife, and for us as well? Let me know if you agree. Raise your hand. Yes. Now, I remember a time that actually happened. I remember seeing pictures of Bangalore in India where the trees were flowering and shedding hundreds of orange and yellow flowers in an empty street. I remember seeing Singapore turning back into a jungle. I remember seeing pollution level plummeting across the planet, and I remember seeing blue sky in Beijing. Now, when did that happen? Of course, it happened last year during the pandemic, when so many countries in the world got into lockdown. In the middle of that pandemic, in the middle of the crisis, we saw all the good that could happen if the planet, if we just slowed down, if we stop, spewing gases from factories and throwing pollutant into the ocean or flying so many planes in the skies. Instead, we were all stuck at home. We were spending time with our loved ones. We decided to start cooking at home. Some of us took sourdough, well, those who didn't do it already, of course, making bread or sewing. Some of us started to want to volunteer in the community. And many of us dreamed that was the new reality, such a better reality that came out of that crisis. But today you look around you and the reality is very different. The world just can't wait to go back to before. We can't wait to get back to our cars and our offices and our planes. We can't wait to get back to the restaurants and the bars and the shopping malls. We want to have fun. We want to travel again. We want to be entertained. Well, I'll tell you what, I had a dream. Well, actually, that was a nightmare. But anyway, that was a dream. The dream that everything went back to the old days, the good old days and the good old ways. We were producing, we were consuming, we were wasting, we were buying and using and throwing away just like before. And I woke up in sweat and tears and said, no, I don't want to go back, please. Oh, that was just a dream. But actually, this is my biggest fear, that everything that we saw as possible in the middle of the crisis is just going to disappear, just like this when the crisis is over. And then I started to think, and I realized why people want to go back to before. It's because they're not looking forward to after. Let me give you an example. Vacations. What so many people missed last summer. Before the pandemic, we all dreamed of flying to beautiful destinations for a week. During the pandemic, all we could do was take a walk in the park, or watch Netflix, or Google some documents on whatever, the earth or nature. Now, in our mind, that never replaced travel. We were all waiting for the pandemic to be over so we could travel again. The first thing many people we want to do as soon as we can is get a plane out of here. If you want to avoid that, you need to actually find something else to replace travel. What could we do that would be as entertaining, as relaxing, as vacation-like as travel? I honestly don't know, but we should find out. See, I don't want to go back to before, but the thing is, unless there's something else to replace it, I know I will go back to the same old habits. Go back to my job, go back to what I used to do. So what can we do? Well, it's simple. If we don't want to go back, we need to go forward. We need to find ways to replace all those things, replacing the trips, the shopping, the mass production. What would it look in after? Staycations, for example, remote working, services instead of goods, public transport. There's so many things we can do in order to make the world better after the crisis, so we don't go back to before. And also, we as individuals can do something. It doesn't have to be gigantic, it's just a few changes. Give you some examples. I'm replacing my commutes with biking. I'm replacing the office with working from home. I'm replacing printing with using PDF. And I'm replacing takeaway food with home cooked. Now, if all of us do that, that would be a change already. So as a conclusion, I want to ask you all to consider this. You don't want to go back. We need to go forward. So let's define the forward. Let's find what's going to replace the before. Thank you.